Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. We are here at part 3 of Spoopy Spooptober. This is the final part, and for this episode we're looking at the suffering. First off, holy shit. Secondly, holy shit. Why did it take me 12 years to play this game? I was recommended this game over a year ago, and it took me until now to play it. I have to say, I was an idiot for waiting. This game was absolutely fantastic. And look at this. It even comes with a Bud Light Platinum. Don't mind if I do. That is a tasty game. The Suffering is a 2004 game developed by Surreal Software and published by Midway Games for the PlayStation 2, Xbox, and PC. I'm playing the Xbox version. The game plays mostly as a shooter in a horror setting, making heavy use of psychological elements. You play as a man named Torque. Firstly, Torque is a badass. He reloads shotguns like the Terminator, kicks doors open like a total BAMF, and he doesn't give no fucks. Torque is also a silent protagonist whose story is mainly told through flashbacks and hallucinations, and by the people talking around you. At the start of the game, you arrive at prison. As the guards walk you to your cell, they chat amongst themselves about how much of a monster you are, and that you are in prison for brutally murdering your wife and 2 children.
Look, I said I didn't...
Then he drowned one son in the tub and threw the other out a window. Don't ask me to cry for him.
Whew. Inmate, is this true?
Oh, he won't say. Claims he blacked the whole thing out. A likely story. The needle's too good for him. Filthy inmate, they should all die.
Torque has no memory of the murder, but you can discover what really happened by the end of the game. However, the game takes a bit of a Schrodinger's cat approach to this. There are multiple ends to the game, but how you play in the present determines how your wife and children died in the past. I have to say, Torque's situation was the first thing that hooked me into the game. Our main character is extremely unusual and flawed. Not too often do we get to play with a character who we are told from the get-go is this evil, and we are expected to want to make him live. But we do want to make him live. On one hand, it's because it is a game. If you don't make him live, I mean, that's it, that's game over. But on the other hand, I feel it's the quality of the silent protagonist here. See, if the character spoke prior to this moment, we'd be less inclined to project our own morals and our own situations onto that character. But where he is silent, we had that feeling that somewhere deep down, perhaps, maybe he was the good guy. And that really comes from us as the player. It was being able to project myself onto the main character that gave me motivation to get Torque out of there and to do the right thing. So it doesn't take long for shit to hit the fan. The prisoners chat for a minute, berate each other, and expose you to some crazy shit.
Hey, you. Yeah, you.
Let me ask you a question. Do you like awesome things that are awesome?
Anything. Anything but the Mighty Number 9 trailer. Jesus Christ. But then out of nowhere, everything goes dark, and without warning, some sickening, Silent Hill-esque demons take over the prison.
Will you shut the fuck up, you baby-raping, sodomizing sack of shit?
I was just asking the man a question, Goose. Whoa.
What the fuck is this shit?
It's an earthquake. What the hell's going on? CO, you gotta let us out. We're still humans, man.
The whole
we got
fucking
rights.
place is coming down!
Sweet Jesus, what the hell was that?
Slick, you okay,
Is the
man?
prison collapsing? Are we sinking into the ocean? CO! What the hell's going on?
The prison being taken over is really the only story in this game. It happens out of nowhere, and your goal from here on out is simply to escape. It's hinted at that the demons that took over the prison only exist because of malpractice that went on the prison island by those who used to be in power. People such as Dr. Killjoy and Hermes the Executioner, whom you meet as specters later into the game.
It's the perfect place for you and me.
It is so difficult to tame the brain. Sometimes it needs a little jolt to behave.
The first enemies that you see have had the lower half of all of their limbs removed and replaced with knives. These knives represent shivs, as every enemy in the game represents a common method of death, dying, or being executed in a prison setting. Later enemies attack you with needles representing lethal injection. Some enemies drop down from the ceiling and attack in a fashion reminiscent of lynching, with some other enemies being large, tumorous masses with multiple guns sticking out of their back, representing a single man firing squad. Fighting these enemies is never too difficult. You just fire as many bullets into them as you can for the most part, as the game, more than it's anything else, is an action shooter. If I had to compare this game to anything, literally anything else I've played, I'd say Clive Barker's Undying, another fantastic horror shooter. While the enemies do go down rather easily, they can get the scare on you from time to time, as the game is very corridor based, which means dark corners everywhere. You can switch between first and third person view at any given time, as there is a button mapped to this function on the controller. This feature might sound like it's something you just set once and forget about it, but I found myself constantly switching between them. Third person gives a great benefit to be able to see all of your surrounding area, but if there's an enemy just a bit off in the distance, or maybe on the ceiling, you may want the extra aiming ability offered by first person point of view. The camera was never too problematic, but some tight corridors or areas closed in by trees can get a little too close for comfort. Throughout the game, you'll come across prison guards and inmates trying to escape the horrors that have overtaken the island. This is where the game introduces its morality system, something pretty cool that wasn't too common for the time. In fact, the only game I can think of that I played older than this that had one was Abe's Odyssey. Every time you meet somebody new, two voices will play in your head. The voice of an inner demon and the voice of your dead wife. One will incite you to kill the person you just found, while the other requests you give mercy.
Hold it right there, or I will cut you down! You hear me, inmate? Do you hear me?
Give him a chance.
Ah, to hell with protocol.
I love this aspect of the game. It gives the game the ability to have 3 different endings. As much as I always think it would be fun to play the bad guy and go around and kill everybody for shits and giggles, because you can't do it in real life, I do always find myself playing these games the way I would tackle the situations in real life. There's just something a little more personally rewarding about it to me. Even the racist guards I tried my best to keep alive, and yes, there is racism in this game, but it's tackled with a certain finesse. And it's honestly one of the things that I find makes this game a lot more respectable than I was expecting it to be.
Ah, to hell with protocol. Back the fuck off! Ah!
I could never love a murderer.
Prisons around the world have always had their share of problems, and in different times some of those problems were racism. That racism is shown very strongly in this, and much like how Rule of Rose showed the horrors of pedophilia, this shows the horrors of racism in a very true light, and makes this more than just a horror or action game if you choose to notice what's going on around you. This game offers many social statements alongside its general narrative, and that goes a long way. There's even an enemy in this game that, according to its lore, comes from the wreckage of a crashed and beached slave transport ship. These slaves were left to die in their ship as the water rose around them and rats ate their way into their body. The game really gives you a sense of empathy and makes you feel in new ways about things we just don't think about too often. Maybe I'm reading too much into this, but that's just how I felt. Alongside its statements on racism, it also makes statements about the corruption of our prison societies and judicial system. On the game disc, there's a making of, and also a documentary about the haunted prison they based the design of their game on. And if you think you heard some things about messed up prisons before, I highly recommend you watch this documentary.
All packed into these large, open holding cells. They were incredibly violent, disease-ridden. Sometimes disease would wipe out the entire prison population.
What happened in the prison that this game is based on is truly horrific, and really denies most of what it means to be a human being. But this is real, this is who we are, this is part of our history, it's where we come from. And it's important that we don't just reject that. It is hard to believe that these things happened in what we expected and considered to be a civilized society. But the fact of the matter is, it did. And it's really not even that far back in our history. Humans really are a messed up bunch. And it's humans that really made this a good horror. For its age, the game looks fantastic. There are some low poly models and the faces kinda look a little bit derpy, but overall, very good for its age. The sound effects are a mixed bag, as is the music, but nothing in this game is done terribly. The voices are generally good, even if some are cliched or stereotyped.
Whatever, man. Stop tripping. It's fucking chaos. We just gotta bust out of here.
Well, you think I forget, hombre? You and Byron thought you could hide that shit from me?
The voice of Hermes really stands out to me, even if he just stole the performance from another great actor.
They needed someone professional to pull the switch. A lot of eager sadists applied, but I was the only one who took the work seriously. So seriously, I wanted to taste the gas myself. That's what carnate does, it brings out the killer inside.
Controls are great, but the auto-aim's a little too strong for its own good, and sometimes the detection on items in the environment can be a bit bad. If you're slightly off angle to a ledge, you won't detect it and will need to re-angle to be able to climb. Same goes with items you can grab and push around. This can be really annoying where the game does have some puzzle solving here and there. It gets truly annoying when you are solving a puzzle amidst an infinite enemy spawn. At the start of the game, it feels like it's going to be a survival horror title, and that's what I was expecting. However, it doesn't take long to get your first gun, and ammo is quite plentiful through most of the game. While it's not exactly what I was expecting, I'm kind of happy it took this route. It feels more like playing Duke Nukem than Resident Evil, but that fast-paced action really helped pull me into the game this time around, and push me through it at a good solid pace. I never felt the game got boring, though sometimes it did get disorienting. So many corridors, so many doors, and so many paths that you never have to go down. You do get maps, but for some reason or another, I just never bothered to look at them. There are a few bosses in the game, but the only one that stood out as cool to me was the final boss that I won't show for spoiler reasons. The other bosses in the game really just require you to do some light puzzle solving to beat. As you venture through the game as well, the game makes a little too frequent use of this jump scare tactic of sudden images and loud flashing noises onto the screen. The frightening aspect of this wears off quick, but I don't mind that it stays consistent, as the images you see during these can be very creative and mood setting. The true frights just come from the environment itself. The horrifying scenes you witness via security cameras, the unsettling phone calls that seem to come from beyond the grave, and every flashback you have where you see your dead kids and wife talking to you, shaping the history that led up to their murder, and the marital problems you face as a convict. That is the real horror in this game to me. If I have to say this game took any one major misstep, it's this. The game offers a transformation mode. When this meter is charged, at the push of a button you can transform into this incredible Hulk-like creature who just lays waste to anybody in a single hit. It's important you avoid the light in this mode, as the light will drain your HP in no time flat, but otherwise, it just comes off as feeling too strong and too arcadey for the atmosphere the game was going for. It does play into the game for story reasons, as the whole concept of Torque battling inner demons is prevalent throughout. However, I just didn't like playing like this, so I avoided it at all costs. Also, I worried that giving into it would play into the morality system in some way. A worry I really had no basis for having. I really wouldn't miss it if this whole function was removed. Overall, I gotta say, even with a few missteps and, there not really being a story per se, this game is a must-play for horror fans. Horror games, to me, work best when they tie into reality and show you the horrors of the real world we live in. And while this does stumble into the paranormal area, into the occult, stumbles really into everything, into body horror, the true horror lies in the fact that this all comes from who we are. This game truly does show you the horrors of reality, and it does it well without sacrificing its atmosphere or its fast-paced combat. It's not too long for its own good, and the silent protagonist puts you in a unique position for a game of this sort, to develop empathy for things we don't often think about. That alone makes this game special to me. And if I didn't already know it would be terrible, I would be rushing straight into playing the sequel after playing this one. So I guess, on the bright side, maybe it's a good thing I waited 12 years to play The Suffering. So if you want a game to play in the Halloween season that won't take too long and doesn't develop as slowly as the regular horror games out there today, The Suffering is exactly what you're looking for. Anyway, that's all for me this Halloween. You guys have a spoopy night, and thanks for watching.